So I'm cutting inlay into these two pieces of walnut today, and I'm going to be inlaying a piece of basswood that's 3/4 by 3/4 of an inch and about 1/8 of an inch. So I've got it at 45 degrees, and what I want to do is just score the edge going down through the walnut grain enough that I can follow this line once the square is taken away. And here's the fourth one. The corners are always tough. So I've got a line here on each side, and I can now score these deeper. So I take this knife and I run it down with just a little bit more pressure each time. And it's better to cut this line here first you'll see we'll be using a router to route out the center. And you might think it'd be good to route out the center first and come back and cut the lines, but there's no support for the knife as you do that. Depending on a grain, this knife can follow the grain if you're not careful, so that's why I'm not putting a tremendous amount of pressure here. And one last one. Again, the corners being the toughest. The other three ways. I'm going to take a utility knife now and see if I can deepen up the cuts and maybe come to the corners. I don't want to press through on the strips because it probably will be possible to break these, and that's the last thing I want to happen. I can get this corner. So now I've got this laminate trimming board with a 3/16 inch wide straight bit, and I've got it set to be a little bit less than the thickness of this piece. I don't want it the full thickness because I want some left over. I'm probably anywhere from right to the line to maybe 1/16 or 3/32 over. So I'll take this chisel, and if my line is that I cut with an X-Acto knife and a utility knife and the chipping knife is deep enough, I can just pop this corner out and the wood will chip. Rarely is that deep. If this was a regular piece of wood, I would take a hammer or some mallet and strike the chisel lightly and clean up the corner. But I can't do this on the boat because actually none of these strips are tied down on the deck. So I'm supporting underneath and working this back and forth, and that does actually a pretty good job. Trimmed up with the X-Acto knife here. I also want to make sure that it's about the same depth, corner to corner. That looks pretty good. So oriented the same way as I put it in, this marks up at the top. So I'll lay it in and fits pretty nicely. There's going to be a little bit of a gap here around the top, but that glue will hold it in place. So I want the corners well saturated, some on the bottom, and then I go around the edge and make sure that it's saturated as well, just to fill the gap. You can always wipe off the extra glue. go, oriented that way. Slide that in. Close the glue bottle out, because if I don't do that, I'll hit it. And press it in place. That goes in very nicely. And so for a clamp, what I'm doing is just taking maybe a 1/4-inch square piece of scrap, putting tape on it so it doesn't stick. I'll go ahead and wipe off this excess glue, and I want, since there is a little bit of bow, I want pressure across here, then up there. And so I have 2 spring clamps that I'll use. Here and here. And then a smaller spring clamp up at the top that actually gives quite a bit of pressure. You can see how that forced out a little bit more glue. So it's doing a good job. So after the glue is dried a bit, take the clamps off. You can see that there's an excess of glue. It's real soft right now, so I'll just scrape that off with a chisel a little bit. You could leave it on until it dries, but it's just a little bit softer. So what I like to do now is take a spoke shave, and I'll work this down this way. And there we have it.